What if I told you that parenting in 1970 was actually easier than parenting today? I know that sounds crazy. Back then, there were no baby monitors, no Google to answer midnight questions, and definitely no apps to track every milestone. But here's the shocking truth. Despite having access to more parenting resources than any generation in history, modern parents are more anxious, more overwhelmed, and more exhausted than ever before. So what happened? How did more help somehow make parenting harder? If you're a parent watching this right now, I want you to think about yesterday. Just yesterday. How many times did you have to make a decision about technology? Should I let my 8-year-old watch YouTube Kids for another 20 minutes? Is my teenager spending too much time on TikTok? Should I check their Snapchat messages? What about that notification that just popped up? Is it something I need to worry about? Now imagine this. You're a parent in Portland, Oregon in 1970. Your biggest technology decision? Whether to let your 10-year-old watch the Brady Bunch on the family's one television set. That's it. That's literally it. But here's what's happening to parents today across cities like Denver, Atlanta, and Phoenix. We're making an average of 35,000 decisions per day. And for parents with kids aged 8 to 17, nearly 40% of those decisions now involve some form of digital technology. Sarah, a mom of 2 from Austin, Texas, told me she checks her phone 150 times a day, not for herself, but to monitor her kids' digital lives. She's tracking screen time, reviewing app permissions, researching whether that new game is appropriate, and Googling signs of cyberbullying at 11 p.m. because her 12-year-old seemed quiet at dinner. Meanwhile, her own mother raised 3 kids in the 1970s without ever once Googling, "Am I a good parent?" And it's not just individual families struggling with this. That's more time than most 1970s parents spent on all parenting decisions combined. But here's the really crazy part. We have more parenting resources, more expert advice, more safety tools, and more educational apps than any generation in history. So why do 73% of parents with children aged 10 to 16 report feeling completely overwhelmed by the daily demands of modern parenting? Take Mike, a dad from Charlotte, North Carolina. His biggest parenting worry in the morning isn't whether his 14-year-old ate breakfast or finished homework. It's whether she's been cyberbullied overnight, if she's been exposed to inappropriate content, or if that study group she mentioned is actually happening on Discord with strangers. His father, back in 1972, his biggest morning worry was whether Mike remembered his lunch money. And this isn't just affecting parents, it's rewiring our kids' brains too. Children aged 8 to 12 now receive an average of 237 notifications per day across their devices. That's 1 interruption every 4 minutes of their waking hours. Compare that to 1970, when the biggest interruption in the kids' day was maybe the ice cream truck driving by. Parents in cities like Seattle, Miami, and Chicago are reporting something that sounds almost impossible. They're nostalgic for problems they never had. They're wishing they could worry about scraped knees instead of screen addiction, or whether their kid made it home for dinner instead of whether they're being groomed by strangers online. And the most heartbreaking part? We're not failing as parents. The game itself has completely changed. In 1970, parenting had clear boundaries. Home was safe, school was supervised, and the neighborhood had eyes everywhere. Kids played outside until dark, and parents knew that meant they were probably safe, probably learning something, and definitely getting exercise. Today, a parent in Dallas might feel guilty for letting their 11-year-old play outside without a GPS tracker, a cell phone, and a detailed itinerary of where they'll be every 15 minutes. So no wonder 68% of parents with teens report lying awake at night, not because their kids are out past curfew, but because they're wondering what their kids are doing online in the next room. The invisible dangers are somehow more terrifying than the ones we can see. So here's what really happened. The shift from 1970s parenting to 2025 parenting isn't just about technology. It's about 3 psychological traps that have fundamentally rewired how we think about raising children. And once you see these traps, you can't unsee them. The freedom factor. How fear hijacked our parenting brain. Let me tell you about the most dangerous psychological shift in modern parenting. It's called availability bias, and it's literally stealing our children's independence. Here's how it works. Our brains are wired to make decisions based on the most recent, most vivid information we can remember. In 1970, when something bad happened to a kid in Boston, parents in Denver might never even hear about it. The local newspaper might run a small story, but that was it. But today, When a child goes missing in Portland, parents in Miami know about it within 30 minutes. They see the Amber Alert, the news coverage, the social media posts, the expert analysis about how to prevent this from happening to your child. Think about it like this. Imagine your brain as a filing cabinet. In 1970, the danger folder had maybe 2 or 3 stories your parents personally knew about. Today, that folder is stuffed with thousands of vivid, terrifying stories from across the entire country, all feeling equally relevant to your 9-year-old riding their bike to school. Sarah from Phoenix told me something that perfectly captures this trap. She said, "I'll let my kids play outside, but I'm checking on them every 10 minutes. Not because our neighborhood is dangerous, it's actually safer than the one I grew up in, but because I can't stop thinking about all the stories I've seen online." Here's the shocking truth. Crime rates involving children have actually decreased by 40% since 1970. But parents' fear of crime has increased by over 300%. We've traded our children's freedom for our own psychological comfort. And our kids aged 8 to 16 are paying the price, spending 50% less time outdoors and 70% less time engaging in unstructured play compared to kids in the 1970s. The technology trap, when solutions become problems. Now here's where it gets really twisted. Technology promised to solve parenting problems, but it created something psychologists call decision fatigue amplification. Let me break this down with a simple comparison. In 1974, a parent in Chicago had to make maybe 12 technology-related decisions for their kids per year. Should we get cable TV? What time should the kids stop watching television? Maybe whether to buy that new Atari system. So, today, parents make 12 technology decisions before lunch. Should I let my 7-year-old use the iPad during breakfast? Which apps are educational versus just entertainment? Is 30 minutes of screen time too much or too little? What about that notification that just popped up? And here's the psychological kicker. Every single one of these decisions triggers what researchers call moral licensing anxiety. It works like this. When you let your 10-year-old watch YouTube for 20 minutes, your brain files that as, "I've been lenient." So when they ask for more screen time later, you feel pressure to say no to balance it out. But then you feel guilty for saying no to something that seems harmless. Jessica, a mom from Austin with 2 kids aged 11 and 14, described it perfectly. "I spend more mental energy managing their devices than I do talking to them about their actual lives. I've become a technology referee instead of a parent." Meanwhile, her mother in 1976, her biggest technology battle was getting Jessica to turn off the Brady Bunch for dinner. One decision, clear outcome, everyone moves on. But today's parents are making these micro decisions all day long, and each one carries the weight of, am I damaging my child's development? No wonder 82% of parents with children aged 8 to 17 report feeling mentally exhausted by 3 p.m. And here's the final trap, the one that's really destroying modern parenting. It's called social comparison amplification, and it's turned parenting from a private experience into a public performance. Your neighbors, your siblings, maybe some families from church or work, that was your reference group. Today, you're unknowingly comparing yourself to thousands of families every single day. Every time you open Instagram, Facebook, or even see a well-behaved family at Target, your brain is running a comparison algorithm. Their 6-year-old is reading chapter books. Mine still struggles with sight words. Am I failing? Their kids eat vegetables willingly. Mine negotiated for 20 minutes over 3 bites of broccoli. But here's what your brain doesn't understand. You're comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel. Mark, a dad from Denver with kids aged 9 and 12, put it this way. "I see other dads coaching Little League, building tree houses, doing science experiments. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to get through bedtime without a meltdown. I feel like I'm failing at this job I never got training for." The psychological toll is massive. Parents today spend 40% more time researching parenting techniques than actually implementing them. We're so busy trying to parent perfectly that we're missing the chance to parent authentically. And our kids feel it too. Children aged 10 to 16 report feeling more pressure to be perfect for their parents than kids felt in any previous generation. The irony? The more we try to optimize our parenting, the more anxious both we and our children become. All right, so here's the good news. You don't need to time travel back to 1970 to fix this, but you do need to strategically borrow 3 specific techniques that made parenting simpler back then. and I'm going to give you the exact steps to implement each one, starting today. The Digital Sunset Protocol. First, we need to unplug intentionally, but not the way you think. Here's what you do. Pick 1 hour before bedtime, let's say 8 p.m. if you have kids aged 6 to 12, or 9 p.m. for teenagers 13 to 17. This becomes your family's digital sunset. But here's the crucial part that most families get wrong. You don't just take the devices away. You replace them with what I call analog connection activities. Maria, a mom from San Antonio with 3 kids aged 8, 11, and 14, implemented this last month. She said, "The first night, my kids were climbing the walls. By night 7, my 11-year-old was asking to start digital sunset earlier so we could finish our puzzle." The key is preparation. Before you announce this change, stock up. Puzzles, card games, books, art supplies, even just a deck of playing cards. Your goal isn't to eliminate technology, it's to prove that connection can happen without screens. The good enough parent reset. Second, we need to embrace imperfection strategically. And I have a specific technique for this. It's called the Tuesday test. Here's how it works. Every Tuesday, pick Tuesday because it's the most ordinary day of the week. Ask yourself this single question. Not Instagram-worthy Tuesday, not Pinterest-perfect Tuesday, just regular, maybe slightly chaotic, probably imperfect Tuesday. David, a dad from Nashville with kids aged 7 and 10, told me, "I realize my kids don't remember the elaborate birthday parties or the perfectly organized playroom. They remember the Tuesday I let them eat cereal for dinner because we were building a blanket fort." The Tuesday test forces you to focus on presence over perfection. And here's the psychological trick. When you stop trying to create perfect moments, you start noticing the good ones that are already happening. Solution 3. The responsibility ladder. Finally, we bring back freedom through what I call graduated independence. This is the most important one, so pay attention. You're going to create a responsibility ladder for your child. Each rung represents a new level of freedom, tied to a demonstrated responsibility. For kids aged 6 to 9, rung 3, can walk to a neighbor's house without an escort. For kids aged 10 to 14, rung 1, can ride their bike to school. Rung 2, can spend 2 hours at the library alone. Rung 3, can take public transportation to visit a friend. For teenagers 15 to 17, the ladder gets bigger, managing their own wake-up time, handling their own conflicts with teachers, even managing their own minor mistakes without parental intervention. Lisa, a mom from Portland with a 12-year-old, implemented this system 6 weeks ago. She said, "My son went from needing me to find his socks every morning to successfully navigating a city bus to get to soccer practice." The confidence boost was incredible for both of us. But here's the secret sauce. You celebrate the process, not just the outcome. When your 8-year-old successfully walks to the mailbox but forgets to check for packages, you don't focus on the forgotten packages. You celebrate the independence, the problem solving, the courage it took to try something new. The reality check. Look, parenting in 2025 will never be exactly like 1970. And honestly, that's probably a good thing. We have medical advances, safety improvements, and educational resources that make childhood genuinely better in many ways. But we can absolutely reclaim the simplicity, the trust, and the focus that make 1970s parenting feel more sustainable. Start with just one of these 3 solutions this week. Don't try to revolutionize your entire parenting approach overnight. That's exactly the kind of perfectionist trap we're trying to escape. Remember, your kids don't need you to be the perfect parent. They need you to be their parent. Present, imperfect, and trusting them to grow into the capable humans you're raising them to be. So let's recap how to reclaim the simplicity of 1970s parenting in 2025. First, implement the Digital Sunset Protocol. 1 device-free hour before bedtime with analog connection activities ready to go. Second, embrace the Tuesday test. Ask yourself weekly if you'd be okay with your child remembering just an ordinary, imperfect day. And third, build the responsibility ladder. Give your kids graduated independence tied to demonstrated responsibility, celebrating the courage to try, not just perfect outcomes. These 3 strategies will help you parent with the confidence and simplicity of 1970, even though you're raising kids in 2025. Your children don't need perfect parents, they need present parents who trust them to grow. Now, here's my question for you. Do you think parenting was truly easier back then? Or are we just romanticizing the past? Maybe you're a parent from the 1970s watching this, or maybe you're struggling with modern parenting right now. Drop a comment below and tell me, what aspect of raising kids today feels most overwhelming to you? Screen time battles, social media pressure, the constant comparison trap? Your answer could become our next deep dive into fixing modern family life. If this video helped you understand why parenting feels impossibly hard right now, hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep exploring how to bring sanity back to modern family life. This has been your Parenting Reality Check. Now go give your kids the gift of your presence, not your perfection.